Two-party domination in U.S. politics. Since the ratification of the Constitution in 1787, the United States has had a two-party system for all but about 30 years in total. This historical record stands in marked contrast to the experience of the many nations that have third parties. A third party is a political party organized as opposition or an alternative to the existing parties in a two-party system. If you didn't get that definition, pause and rewind it. Many countries even have multi-party systems. The United States two-party system has had two contradictory influences on people's civic engagement. On the one hand, the dominance of only two strong political parties through most of American history has made it easy for individuals to find avenues of becoming civically engaged. Further, at various historical points, political parties have worked for the outright extension of political rights to groups that were excluded, although often with the foremost aim of bolstering their core supporters. On the other hand, the dominance of just two political parties that tend to be ideological moderate discourages the political participation of some people, particularly those who are strongly ideological. Although the grip of the United States two-party system is frustrating to people who support a greater diversity of parties, the reasons for the two-party system are numerous and difficult to change. So let's look at that first reason, the dualist nature of most conflicts. Historically, many issues in the United States have been dualist or two-sided. For example, the debate over ratification of the U.S. Constitution found people with two basic opinions. On one side, you had the Federalists supported ratification of the Constitution, which created a federal government that separated powers among three branches and shared power with state governments. They were opposed by the Anti-Federalists, who campaigned against ratification of the Constitution, supported stronger states' rights, and wanted to see states and individuals enjoy greater protections. This split provided the initial structure for the two-party system, and a multitude of issues followed that format. Political scientists asserted that the dualist nature of voter alignments or cleavages, make sure you know that word in this context because the AP uses that term, shapes how political parties form. In particular, these alignments or cleavages concern the character of the national fabric. For example, should religious ideals or secular notions prevail? And they are determined by function, business versus agrarian interests, for example. These cleavages shaped party formation during the 19th century, when the dualist nature of conflict continued to be in evidence in public affairs. Some states wanted slavery. Other states opposed the peculiar institution of human bondage. In some states, commercial and industrial interests dominated. In other states, agricultural interests held the reins of power. Immigrants, often Catholics, controlled the politics of some states, whereas native-born Protestants held sway in others. By the 20th century, the dualist conflict had become more ideological. Some Americans agreed with President FDR's plan to lift the country out of the Great Depression by significantly increasing the role of government in people's everyday lives. Others opposed this unprecedented expansion of the federal government's power. In later decades, debates over civil rights and women's rights demonstrated the continued dualist nature of conflict in American society and culture. All right, so the next reason is the winner-take-all electoral system. In almost all U.S. elections, the person with the most votes wins. If a competitor gets just one vote fewer than the victor, he or she wins nothing. If a third party garners a significant proportion of the vote in the congressional elections nationwide but does not win the most votes in any given district, that party will not win any seats in Congress. Compare the winner-take-all system with the proportional representation system found in many nations. The winner-take-all system is an electoral system in which the candidate who receives the most votes wins that office, even if that total is not a majority. So if there's more than two people competing and they win the most, that is a pluralist victory instead of a majority. In a proportional representation system, political parties win the number of parliamentary seats equal to the percentage of the vote each party receives. So, for example, if the Green Party were to capture 9% of the vote in a country's election, it would get 9 seats in a 100-member parliament. In a proportional representation system, the 19% of the vote that Reform Party candidate Ross Perot won in the 1992 U.S. presidential election would have given the Reform Party about 85 seats in the House of Representatives. In nations with proportional representation, third parties are encouraged because such parties can win a few seats in the legislature and use them to further their cause and broaden their support. In addition, in proportional representation systems, third parties sometimes form a coalition or working union with a larger party so that the two together can control a majority of a legislature. And so, for example, the Green Party that won 9 seats in Parliament, in that example I just mentioned, might form a coalition with another party that had received 42% of the vote, together forming a majority in government. In this way, the third party can get members appointed to key positions as a reward for forming that coalition. Consequently, societies with proportional representation systems can sometimes be more inclusive of differing points of view because even those winning a small proportion of the vote achieve representation, and that representation can be pivotal in forming of coalitions. The next reason, continued socialization to the two-party system. Another reason that the two-party system dominates in the U.S. is that party identification, like ideology, values, and religious beliefs, is an attribute that often passes down from one generation to the next. Hence, an individual is likely to be a Democrat or a Republican because his or her parents were one or the other. Many people first learn about government and politics at home. Around the dinner table, a child may have heard her parents rail against Barack Obama's handling of the economy or criticize Mitt Romney's healthcare policy. Having become socialized to their household's political culture, children are likely to mimic their parents' views. Even children who do not share their parents' political outlook or who grow apart from it over time, as commonly occurs during the college years, have been socialized to the legitimacy of the two-party system, unless, of course, their parents routinely criticized both Democrats and Republicans or voiced dissatisfaction with the two-party system. And the last reason are elections laws that favor the two-party system. At both the federal and the state level in the United States, election laws benefit the two major parties because they are usually written by members of one of those parties. Although some local governments mandate nonpartisan elections, that means not affiliated with a party, in most cities and towns, getting on the ballot typically means simply winning the party's nomination and collecting a state-specified number of signatures of registered party members on a nominating petition. Usually, the party organization circulates this petition for a candidate. Third parties have a much steeper climb to get their candidates in office. In the 2008 presidential election, candidate Ralph Nader, who ran as an independent, had difficulty just getting his name on the ballot in some states. Scholars of civic engagement point to the structural impediments to the formation of third parties as the key to the low level of civic engagement on the part of individuals who are dissatisfied with the two-party system. Facing seemingly insurmountable structural obstacles to the formation of successful third parties, some Americans shy away from political engagement.